Hey everyone, welcome back to the Young Adult Podcast here for young adults at Harbor Point Church. We're so glad to be back with you guys today. Back with Dorian Johnson. Thank you for joining us here again. We thought
Yeah.
we'd lose you all this time, but you're back with us. Good to have
Can't
you
get rid of me.
back. But yeah, we're back with episode 6, which is crazy to think about. We've been
Six?
doing this now
Oh,
for
jeez.
6 whole weeks. So, and every minute of it, I can't even talk today. Every minute of it has been fantastic. So we're glad to keep on doing this for you guys. We've been having fun doing it. And so if you guys have any topics that you want to be talked about here, we'd love to hear from you. So if you guys want to DM us on Instagram or message me or email me, whatever you guys want to do to let us know what you guys want talked about here, I would love to hear from you guys. We've been hearing great feedback. And so, yeah, we're glad to be doing this. Today
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about the conversation of God's timing. So a
Oh
couple,
boy.
yeah, this is a big one. A couple weeks back, we talked about relationships with both Shara and Jeff Bachman, and they both had some insight when it came to God's timing, but in the sense of relationships. And so we wanted to kind of continue that conversation and grow that conversation, and specifically talk about God's timing and God's bigger plan for us. So,
hmm
um, yeah, just to get started, why don't we kind of talk about maybe a story that you have when it comes to God's timing and God's kind of bigger plan for us. If you don't have one, I can go ahead and start if you want something
Um,
about it.
yeah, you go ahead and start. I'll think of one.
Okay. A lot of my testimony, a lot of my story comes with God's timing and God's bigger plan for me. When I got into college, I didn't really have the greatest relationship with God, but once I started to really get to know Him better and see what He had for me, my relationships really started to grow. And so, one of the biggest thing for God's timing and God's bigger plan for me was when I even got started into ministry. And so, my sophomore year of college, I went off to this camp, and this camp was talking about God, or having us say yes to God's plan for us.
Mhm.
And so this topic came up, and on that Saturday night, the speaker invited us to say yes to what God was telling us to do. And so the clearest thing that I heard was ministry. And so when God said yes, or God told me to get into that, I decided, you know what, God, I'll say yes to this. Just show me what you want me to be doing, and show me the bigger picture in this. And so um, I started to trust Him with that. And so as time went on, He started showing me what exactly He wanted me to get into, and even what that looked like. And my love for ministry grew and grew and grew in that. But a lot of that came down to God's timing. Of course, I wanted to see exactly what He was doing right then and there, but I hadn't been able to see the full picture even up till this point. Like, it started off with me leading a small group and being on this large group team. Then
Yeah.
went to me knocking on over 750 doors and inviting
Oh,
over
jeez.
1,500 freshmen to come to my small group and know who Jesus was. And so, the things started to just grow and grow and grow. And now I'm in ministry here at Harbor Point Church, leading, this fantastic group of young adults. And so,
Yeah, you are.
um, yeah, I am. So, like, being able to see God's picture as time goes on has been awesome. But of course, a lot of that has been, there's been fear in that. Not being able to see God's, full picture during that time too has been really challenging. But a lot of that just comes down to God's timing, and just me trusting in that whatever God's doing right now, I just have to trust that in God's time, it's going to be great and it's going to be fantastic. But I just have to fully trust that whatever His plan is for me right now, He's doing in His own timing, and it's going to be beautiful.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a time for me that it's been, the kind of the biggest point for me.
hmm
But of course, I have hundreds of more stories relating to that. But I would love to hear
That's
what you
awesome.
think of that.
I got a few. I think the biggest was like I've been going to the same church starting at like Mariners Ocean Hills in South County, now Harbor Point.
Right.
This is by far my favorite name. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
that's got to be said. Uh, like it was great, and my journey through like becoming a Christian and all that was, it's a lot of it due to this church and so many great things. But after a time, I got to a point in my spiritual growth where the small group or the life group I was in like really wasn't cutting it for me. Like quite a few of them were new believers and some were still questioning. Like there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And then me being like at that time, like I was on fire, ready to do stuff, diving into like deep theology and apologetics and all that stuff. it, like just, it didn't work. And that was like my sophomore, junior year of high school. And it just kept building. Like I kept looking for a small group and a life group that really matched me, like wanting to learn more and dive deeper.
Right.
And I didn't really get that up until about a few weeks ago. One of my old friends from high school, he texted me and he said, "Hey, I'm looking for a small group where like a bunch of guys can grow with each other and dive deeper. Would you want to do something like that with me?" And I was driving with my sister. We were going to get boba, and like it's like kind of silent. We're just listening to music, and I get that text, and I just go, "Oh yeah!" like super loud and everything. Kira like swerved a little bit, but we were safe. It was great. But like that started. We're actually meeting later this week. We meet like every Tuesday and stuff.
Nice.
It's just like a bunch of guys I went to high school with,
right.
And we're all involved in ministry of some sort. Like another guy, he's leading mission trips and stuff. Mm-hmm. Other people are working at their churches. And then me being involved with junior high and stuff.
Right.
Represent.
There it is.
Sorry. Like we're all involved in ministry of some sort. And it's so awesome because we've known each other, some of us for like 7 or 8 years. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time we've been able to do this.
Right.
And it's been such a blessing. And like life change is already happening. And we're only like 2 or 3 weeks in.
Right.
But it was like something I was praying for like 4 years now or something. Mm-hmm. And like just recently, God has given it to me. And I was thinking about this and I was praying about this a while ago. Like, why did you wait so long?
Yeah.
And I realized that within the group of leaders, there is no leader.
Right.
And like, this isn't meant to elevate myself, but a lot of what I've been doing recently has not been to lead, but it's been to help other people lead. Mm-hmm. It's been getting like students more involved or like helping build up other people. And I feel like that's a lot what's happening with this group. And yeah. It was just been a lot of God preparing me for this. But it was for 4 years or something, I was praying for a small group like this, yeah. And just now got it. And it was so worth the wait.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. And I appreciate you sharing that. But one of the biggest things that, of course, we see in this is that our timing is way different than God's timing.
Yeah.
Of course, we always want it. Like once we pray to God, we want to see the results right then and there. Mm-hmm. And that's not always the case. And we are actually talking about this passage that I have here, 2 Peter 3. We were talking about this in our meeting today, and one of the things stuck out to me a lot. Let me see if I can find it real quick. But this idea of, was it 2 Peter 3?
2 Peter 3.
Yeah. But there's a part in the scripture that really stuck out to me about God's timing. Sorry, let me look for it real quick. But basically what it said was that, here it is. With the Lord, a day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day.
Yeah.
So the Lord is not slow in keeping his promise, and some understand slowness. And that comes from 2 Peter 3, verse 8. And I thought that was kind of funny because, of course, a lot of, like I said, a lot of our perspective on timing, we want to see it now. We want to see the results right then and there. But of course, that's not how God works. His timing is way different than our timing.
Oh, yeah.
And it's frustrating sometimes, for sure. And of course, like at least in my own case, I pray a lot about different things happening in my life. I want a solid relationship. I want, my career to go well. I want all these things, and I want to see the results within the next few days, But of course, that's just not the case. And so a lot of the time is just spent in that moment of waiting for God's perfect timing. But I do like what you said about your story, in that time of waiting, God was using you and growing you for the betterment of what your life looked like and what other people's life looked like, And so I think that's such an important thing to know, is that within the midst of that timing, God is doing something incredible in your own life and in other people's lives too.
Yeah, our God is never idle.
Right.
Like one of my middle school boys, like a year or two ago, he asked me this, and it blew my mind because he was in 6th grade. He came up and he was like, "Hey, Dorian, why did God let the Hebrews be enslaved in Egypt for 400 years?" Right. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, couldn't like just 40 years have done it? Like, why 400? Like, it blew my mind. But then I got to this idea, like the Spirit revealed to me, like all throughout the Old Testament, like this is a little bit off track, but God keeps calling back to that time in Egypt. Like, look at what I did for you. Look at this. Like, without that long period of waiting, it wouldn't have been as impactful.
Yeah.
Because like everybody had given up hope. They felt lost. They felt abandoned. And then God comes in, boom, with Moses. Amazing movie, Prince of Egypt. Check it out. Like a lot of the times, like that waiting is purposeful, and God is like preparing us, or He's setting it up for just such an amazing encounter.
Right. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and in the midst of that waiting, like of course, if it was only a week that they had to wait for God to come in and free them, they wouldn't have to rely on Him.
Yeah, like
And
we've been waiting longer than a week.
right, for sure. In this time of quarantine, we're now in what'd you say, week 6?
I think so, week 6.
Week 6. Oh, there's so
Oh
much waiting
boy.
here. But in that, in that period of waiting, God uses that time to allow us to trust in what He's doing and trust in Him. And of
Hmm.
course, if that was to come in a week period or a day period, we wouldn't need to trust on God. We would just know that, oh, it's going to come in a week, just, I got to wait in that, whatever, but
Yeah,
if God, God uses that long period of time for us to trust in Him and what He's doing. And of course, we aren't going to see the full picture of what He's doing until
yeah,
that
definitely.
that time that comes. But there's so much beauty that comes within that waiting period, because of course we trust in God, we rely on Him more, our relationship grows with Him, and there's so much good that comes from that. And so of course, if you're listening in today, or if you're watching live with us right now, um, you know waiting is so great. Of course, it's super hard, it's not fun to do so, but there's so much good that comes from it. Again, like our relationship gets to grow better. And of course, if you've had the experience where you've been waiting for God for a long time to come into your life and do something miraculous, I encourage you to continue to trust and rely on what He's doing, because He is working in your life still, and He's doing something beautiful, even though you might not be able to see it right now.
Hmm.
And again, like if we just had to wait a week for something to happen, we wouldn't have to rely on God as much, because we would just instantly
Yeah,
know that those things were coming. So I think that's really important for us to know right now. And especially in this time of quarantine, where we're waiting for God to just end this thing, we wouldn't have to rely on Him very much if we just knew that that end was coming the next day. We wouldn't have to rely on the relationship that we have with Him, or just His timing in general.
hmm,
So I think
yeah,
that's really important for us to know.
yeah. I mean, waiting sucks.
Waiting is the worst.
I have like a fear of standing in line,
Mm,
like at Costco or anything. Like I just can't do it. So
right.
like waiting it's tough.
Yeah. There's plenty of stories that I have where, I've had to wait on what God was doing, and it was
Hmm.
super frustrating to me, and sometimes it led me astray from God, because I was done. I was irritated at God for making me wait for, whatever was happening to happen.
Yeah.
There's I let's see. I have one where this goes go back to my college years as well, where I think it even had to do with this job. There was a period where I asked God, I was like, okay, God, I could either, I guess I had two opportunities for God to do something amazing with my life with ministry. And so one of those things was to come work here at Harbor Point and to lead this young adult ministry. Another had to do with doing college ministry elsewhere. And so I said, God, I trust in what you're doing, and I just need to know, God, should I go work here at Harbor Point, or should I go work elsewhere, at this other college ministry? And so I was like, God, just like show me what you want to do. And there was a long period of time where I just was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Or I want to take this to my own hands. And so I attempted to do so. And it ended up being a really bad experience, because with my other this other college opportunity, like a lot of things started to fall out of place, and a lot of
Hmm.
bad relationships started to come from that, and it just became this really messy situation where I was just kind of like, I attempted to take it into my own hands there, and I attempted to take control of it, and it just started to just go downhill. And of course, God
Yeah.
ended up using that messy period to say, well, there's your door shut right there. Here's where I want you to go. And it ended up leading me here to Harbor Point, leading a fantastic group of young adults. And I'm super happy with the way things turned out. But at the time I was frustrated, because I was like, that was kind of the way I wanted it to lead. But
Hmm.
God had to make, or this mess had to come from it. And I was frustrated with myself. I was frustrated at God for not making it quicker in the timing. But
Yeah.
ultimately, it led to a really beautiful situation where I'm super happy with where I'm at now. But of course, it was messy getting here. And so
Hmm.
there's plenty of situations where I've wanted to take control from God, and say, you know what, like, you're not going fast enough. I'm going to take it into my own hands and see what I can do out of it. And of course, that's
Yeah.
usually not the best case.
hmm One of my this is one of my all-time highs. Let me find it real quick. It's in the Gospel of Mark. This is one of like my all-time favorite stories. But basically, like, Jesus is hanging out with his disciples,
Right.
and then he asks them, like, hey, who do you think I am? And then Peter, he has this awesome moment. He's like, hey, you're the Son of God. You're the Messiah. You're the one who's going to like save us. And Jesus is like, oh, dude, you got me. Nice job. But I got to tell you, like, what the Messiah means, that I'm going to have to go die and be sacrificed and be crucified. And that, like, he explains that to his disciples. And then Peter, this is like in the span of 10 minutes, he grabs Jesus, like, no, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not how this is going to work. And he like tries to rationalize him, like, no, Jesus. And this is what Jesus says. He says, get behind me, Satan. It's like, you know when you're in a group chat and somebody gets roasted so bad, like nobody wants to say, this is one of those moments.
Yeah.
It's like just so, it's so human. And I can't help but feel like in Peter's situation, like, oh, I just did something great for God.
Right.
You know, I think I know what I'm doing. And then he says, all right, but this is how it's going to go. It's like, no. God, you got it wrong. I obviously got it right.
Right.
Like he definitely knows better than us, but
right.
Man, I feel for Peter in that situation.
Oh, for sure. That is definitely us in a lot of our situations. We're like, no, God, I don't think you truly know what you're doing here. You know, like this is what you need or you want to happen. But of course it's like, that's probably not the best situation, at least in our own eyes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I definitely think that's a lot of our current stories or past stories in our life where we've just been waiting on God to do something. God's basically told us like, hey, this is what's to come. You know, like this is I'm planning something amazing for you. There's going to be something beautiful at the end of the tunnel. I'm not going to tell you when it is, but it's coming, you know, it's coming. And we're sitting there, we're like, well, like, and I trust that you're doing something cool, but at the same time, it's like, I could have something right now, you know, like, I don't think God, I don't think you truly know what you're doing, because if you knew what you're doing, you'd give it to me right now.
Yeah.
You know, and so I think that's also a lot of our own stories. And that can be with, maybe you want a current job right now. Maybe you want a current relationship, you know, to happen. You see a pretty girl or a nice looking guy out there, and you're just like, God, I want this relationship to happen now. I'm praying that you just make this happen. But the reality is that God's plan is way bigger than ours, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it involves waiting. And of course, in that waiting period, we just have to trust in that God's going to help us to grow in that time. God is going to make something beautiful in the end of it. But we just have to trust that whatever God does, that's the best option, not our own option. So I'm glad that you shared that story, because a lot of the time we're just like, well, God, I don't truly think you know what you're doing here. I'm going to take it into my own hands. This is what I want to happen. So God, this is going to be what you're going to make happen, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Not the best. So yeah, I'm glad you shared that story. And you have all the biblical references coming in hot. I love that. You always have your Bible. You haven't even shown your Bible yet.
I haven't. I got it right here. It's right here.
There it is. There's
still
the
falling
Bible.
apart, and it's still super frayed, but by God, I love it.
I love it too. I'm glad that you always bring it along.
Always, man.
Also, this is kind of a fun thing. Dorian's actually sitting in the same room that we started off the podcast in with the first.
Here, check this out.
You could probably still see. Yep, there's a
hey.
The mic is still there. Everything is still set up there. So
the uncomfortable chairs are just still uncomfortable.
Chairs. Yep. This is kind of a throwback episode a little bit.
A little bit.
It's going to be exciting when we're actually able to get back in person, doing the podcast with each other, getting to see face to face. A lot of good conversations going to come from that. But in the meantime, we have to keep doing these Zoom episodes, which is totally fine. Of course, it's not going to be the best quality. It's not going to be the best audio, but we're going to make do with what we've been given. And of course, in this moment where we have to wait on God's timing for this whole quarantine thing to end, we got to make use with what we have now and what we've been given by God. And so
good segue.
Good segue right there. So, of course, here's another great example of our own timing. And so, again, if you guys are currently feeling any, lack of motivation during this time and just kind of frustration with God, I just encourage you to keep pressing into this hard moment. Of course, quarantine's hopefully going to be over soon. I say hopefully because, of course, we don't know the end, but of course, God knows the end. And so we just have to keep trusting in that he knows what is going to be the end for us. And so we just have to trust in, his timing for that. Of course, you may have lost a job in this time, or you may be waiting on a new one. We have to trust in that God is going to, supply us with that when the timing is right. So we need to put our trust in that as well. In a certain relationship, we may have been waiting. This might be like the 2-year mark that you might be waiting on a new relationship or something. Who knows?
How'd you know?
Sorry, Dorian, call you out there. Ooh, hits hard. It's okay, Dorian. It's been a while for me too, man. But you might be waiting on that relationship to happen as well, and you have to keep pressing in with God, and God's going to provide that best timing for that person, that special someone to come into your life as well. Or maybe not at all. That might be the hard reality, is that that might not end up coming as well. So we just have to trust that whatever God's plan is for us, that his plan is way better than our own plan. Our plan can most of the time be super messy and harmful and more self-centered, when in reality God's plan is just the best overall for everyone, and the best, most loving plan for the best outcome. And so out of everything that we have currently going on in our lives, the best thing that we can do right now is to press in and trust in what God is doing.
Yeah, a mentor of mine, this is very childish, but he explained it to me this way a little back. With the Marvel Cinematic Universe, when it was announced that there was going to be like a bunch of movies and stuff, right, everybody wanted the phrase "Avengers Assemble." Like that was the one thing they wanted.
Yeah.
11 years later, and 22 movies or something like that, you finally come to Avengers Endgame. That one moment where Captain America says "Avengers Assemble."
Ooh.
You get the chills every time.
I'm getting them right now, dude.
I know, right? It's such a good moment.
So
but
good.
It took 11 years
right.
and 22 movies and stuff, all leading up to that one moment. But you know what? It's so worth the wait. Endgame was so cool. And same thing with God. Like, yeah, if we got it in the beginning, it's all right. Somewhere in the middle, it'd be pretty good. But when he finally delivers and stuff, it's so worth it. Yes. It's so good.
For sure. In the time of our waiting period, it might take a few years, it might take a few months, whatever the time being. Ultimately, God's timing is the best. We are going to get those ultimate chills when that time comes, because again, God's timing is better than ours, and when that timing finally happens, you get to look back and see all of the good that God did during that time. You get to see how you grew in that moment, how your relationships grew, how your relationship with God ultimately grew. You get to see all this goodness that God was doing in that time, looking back. And then you can finally say, okay, God, I truly see what you're doing here. I'm going to trust you moving forward as well. And so, we hope that for you guys listening in today or watching live with us, we hope that you guys can fully trust in what God is doing ultimately in this time and in everything that is currently happening in your own life. And know that whatever God is doing during this time, it is for the good of all of his people. And so we just have to sit back, let go of our own life, and let God lead the path for us. Because again, it can be messy when we try to take it in our own hands. And that is not God's plan for us. His plan is for us to just let go of it and let God do all the work for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Do you have any concluding thoughts at all with this? I love this talk, and I know that we can talk about this for hours and hours and hours.
Dude, I got hundreds of stories rolling up here.
Right. I also have hundreds of stories. And if you want to continue this conversation, I encourage you guys to either sign up online with, I believe it's harborpoint.church/youngadultbroadcasts, I believe is the link for sign up. I know you don't know. I'm just saying for my own purpose. But if you guys want to be part, we do virtual gatherings after this live stream. And if you guys are listening on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts or maybe wherever else we have this running, I've lost count at this point where we have these podcasts going, but
I think that's a good thing.
It probably is. It's great. We have hundreds of viewers from all over the country and even over the world,
which is awesome.
It's fantastic. And I'm so happy that you guys are all listening in today. But
hey, if anybody is listening from Jacksonville, Florida, contact us. I'm going to buy you a lunch.
Very
All right.
specific, but there
First
it is.
person from Jacksonville, Florida, I'm going to buy you lunch. All right.
Dorian will buy you lunch, so reach out to us.
Yep.
But if you guys are listening in, wherever you guys might be hearing this from, I encourage you guys to sign up for these virtual gatherings that we've been doing for the past few weeks. They've been super awesome. We've been able to continue the conversation that we've been having here with a greater group of people, and getting to hear stories and different accounts and just encouragement from other people that are currently living this situation out as well. It's been awesome to hear, and it's also been great to have just community in this time of not being able to gather together. And so if you
Yep.
guys haven't had the chance to do so, I encourage you guys to sign up for that. And if so, you guys get to continue this conversation with us afterwards. And I can't wait to hear not only your stories that you guys have gone through with waiting on God's timing and God's ultimate plan for you, but also just being able to encourage you guys during this difficult time as well. And so we can't wait to discuss this more with you guys after this. And again, if you guys are listening through Apple Podcasts or on Spotify or whatever you guys are listening on, I encourage you guys to sign up for that. And it's on Wednesday nights at 7:00. So I encourage you guys to listen to that or join us for that as well. It's been
Definitely.
super great. So again, I'm so thankful that you guys have been listening to these podcasts. It's been fantastic being able to do these with you guys. It's been great bringing on so many different people. And so we are going to continue to do this. I appreciate you guys sticking through this, the bad quality and everything like that. Hopefully we'll be back soon with being able to do this in person, which will be a lot higher quality. But, again, I appreciate you guys sticking with us during this time as well. And so with that, again, thank you guys so much. It's been awesome. This has been a great conversation, and we can't wait to continue the conversation afterwards. I encourage you guys to follow our Instagram to keep up with when these go live. Follow us on Instagram at Harbor Point Young Adults. That will be where you guys will be able to see when we're going to be posting stuff, when we're going live and everything like that. And so I encourage you guys to do that as well. So again, Dorian, thank you so much for joining me today. Great conversation,
Yeah, dude.
as always.
Thanks for having me.
I bet you're going to be back again soon, as per usual.
Sweet. I'm down.
We can't wait to have you again. So this has been great. And so we'll see you guys after this with our virtual gathering. See you guys.
Yeah.